Well, I'm starting to sort out the hood here. In case I'm trying to get the louvers, all set as far as how thick they are. Because they're all different thicknesses. There isn't a single one that's the same. They were all cut out by hand, and I think they were cut out by somebody who maybe had some sighting, like sight issues or something, because there wasn't a single one that was the same size. So I measured them, and I took the smallest measurement I could do that still gave me enough meat on it, and that was 1 inch. So I measured down 1 inch with a straight edge. I did all this by eye, and my straight edge ruler here, which you can see how not straight this hood is. I'm sure you can see the light coming through it. It dishes all the way through here. But so I took and measured from basically the top, and then marked it with a Sharpie marker where the end of the ruler was, where it showed the top was at 1 inch. And of course you can see that none of the tops are flat, so it's by eye. And then I kind of looked down the edge of the hood and tried to just fix any of them that I thought were a little off. I think I've got them pretty good. I think I'm seeing this one's a little off, actually. So it's still not quite right. It's hard to do one-handed here. It's still a little low on this outside part. That's a little better. As you can see, they're not going to be 100% perfect because I got to cut them by hand. But using the tape, if you can see down inside, you can see that, like that. I mean, you can see where the edge is and how messed up the cuts were. And then I'm getting ready to tape off the other side, and I'm not sure if you can see my Sharpie marks or not, but that's where I'm doing it. So I'm just gonna, and this hood needs so much work. Holy cow. But I'm gonna let you guys watch while I balance on a milk crate. This side was a little bit worse than, as far as thinness of the louvers. I have a feeling that they're still not going to be 100% perfect, but it's a aftermarket, cheaply done fiberglass hood, so I lay all the tape down and then I stand at the front of the hood and I kind of sight down it and see whether I think any of them need to be fixed at all. All in all, I don't think they look terrible. What I do is I try to see like the shine that's on the top here, and then I look across that shine that's on the top edge, and then I look and see where that tape line sits. I see all in all, they're not terrible. There'll be an improvement over whatever was done to this hood in the first place. And then I still have to resize the edge here because that was all out of whack. And I have this, which you can't see 100%, but this edge here is not straight. And then underneath, I'm still trying to decide what I'm going to do with this. I know that my cold air intake housing that kind of comes around here sticks up really high, and I'm thinking I may cut it and just heat it up and bend it out instead of having to cut that out and reposition it. And it'll, I mean, the amount of effort it's going to take to cut that out and reposition it just for that much more airflow just seems kind of pointless. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think that's the easier road. I'm going to have to figure out a way to get that bird bath that's out in the center here. Get the bird bath out of it, which is the huge low area right here. And then I've got a huge low area right here too. And I don't think any amount of body and Bondo is going to fix that. I think it's going to always kind of be like that unless I do something to fix it so that it's not so flexible. I mean, this hood would be great if it was just a quarter-mile race car and you don't really finish those off, the hoods off all that much for something like that. But this is going to be a street car, so you kind of have to do a little more. I've seen ones on like Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that, and they're terrible. Like any of the ones that I've seen with this exact hood from this manufacturer, because I can pick it out of a crowd because they're terrible quality. You can pick them out of you can pick them out of a crowd because they're terrible quality. They just painted them, or they just left them black. They didn't even bother to paint them. But that's what I'm doing. I've been contemplating this. I've been thinking about this hood problem. Now, I can cut it from underneath, which would make the repair on the outside easier, or it will make the repair on the outside easier, but the problem is that putting the inside part back together will be harder because of all the angles and whatnot that's in here. My other thought, and I just thought about this today, is that I can cut the top off of it in the center here. So I cut along here. I'm going to leave a little bit of this center body line there to help me match it back up when I'm ready to put it back together. So cut along here, and then cut along there, cut along this body line here, and then all the way across in the back. And then I can just flip this over, and then I can fix all these louvers from the back side. I can glue. My plan was to fix that center part of the hood. I've got some of this plastic sheeting that I got from the hobby shop, and my plan was to glue it to the underside of that. And it's lightweight, doesn't weigh hardly anything, and it'll give some rigidity to, it'll make this more rigid, and it won't be so flexible. It'll push that up, but I'm trying to think of how to get, I mean, basically I would be stuck just like holding it until my two-part epoxy dries. It doesn't take terribly long to dry, but still, if you're sitting there for a half hour, 40 minutes just holding something, that seems a little bit much. I'm trying to think of what I can use to, and I think I may end up, I don't know, maybe I'll get two of them. Do one here, cut it down there, and then do one on this side, and it'll push up both sides. I'm not sure. But if I take the top part of the hood off and try to fix all these parts, there's going to be parts that I don't think I'll be able to fix very well, like this dog dish here, this bird bath area, dish down area here, and here. And it's got a whoop-de-doo right in the center here. I've discovered that they primed it, but they didn't do a very good job prepping it before they shot any primer on it. The primer's just flaking off on the underside of the hood, so that's fun too. Don't waste your money. This is $500 worth of junk. But I'm going to make it work because I think it's a cool design, but yeah, I mean, my labor's free to me, but if you were to pay a body shop to fix this, they would charge you, a normal body shop would charge you time plus materials for a job like this, because there's no way to gauge how long it would take to fix this. There will be body shops that'll be like, oh, I'll do it for a couple $100 or whatever, but this hood's got way too many issues to just throw a number at it. So if it was me trying to charge a customer to fix all the inconsistencies and all the defects in this hood, it would be time plus materials, and probably a minimum charge of $500. So you're already, you paid $500 for the hood. Now you got to pay another $500 for repairing it and painting it, bare minimum. You might be into the hood for $1,200–$1,400 by the time it's all said and done, and you could have just spent more money and maybe got a better quality hood. The problem with fiberglass aftermarket hoods is that I've never seen a good one. No matter the money you spend, I've never seen a good one. So I just figured maybe I'd save a couple of bucks on the build and, you know, get this aftermarket hood. Honestly, I mean, for the amount of work I've had to do, maybe I could have got a better hood, you know, a Cervini, I don't know how you say that name, maybe is a better quality, but it was another $500 on top of what I spent on this one. So I'm just going to go with this one because my labor's free, and I'm going to, I think I'm probably just going to cut the top off of it. I can get to all the backs of the louvers. I've got these all set. Some of them may not look quite right. Like this one doesn't look like it's quite the same as this one, but this one actually is dished down like this. So it actually needs to be added to get it up to the level of all the other ones. So that's actually probably pretty accurate as far as where the tape's sitting. They're not going to be 100% perfect. There's no way that I'm going to spend the time trying to make every one of these louvers absolutely perfect. I'm going to get them really close to where they look good by eye. Most of them, like the sides of them, are all gouged out, and I mean, they must have had the new guy doing this hood, or they must not pay their quality control people enough to bother to worry about any of this stuff, or the company just doesn't care. I mean, that could be too. I'm not real impressed with the quality, but it is what it is. So that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to cut the top off of it. I'll fix some of the spots that I can, and you know, you got to be careful when you're adding to it too, because it wants to flex on you. So you almost can't even like rest the sander on it, because the sander will push down on the hood too. So some of this I may end up having to just add some filler to it and smooth it out more. There's lots of cracks in it all over. I mean, you can see them. Well, I can see them. I'm not sure if you can see them in the video here, but there's cracks that have been filled with primer. I mean, that's like a shatter looking crack, if you can see it right here, right there, all through here. Like they smacked the backside of it with something. That's a crack right there. It's actually broke right here, and I'm gonna have to fix that. And then it's dished in right here and right here. These are not cut straight, so I just laid some tape and did it by eye, and I'm gonna cut those out. And when I have the top piece out, I'm just gonna knock these grills out, trim this, get this right, and then I may end up having to get new grills for it. The good thing is that you can go up to any of the hardware stores and get gutter guard that looks like this expanded metal, because that's all this is just aluminum. So you can get gutter guard that's the expanded aluminum like this. They call this expanded metal, by the way. And I'll just glue new expanded metal to it from behind after I fix these, and then in the meantime I can be fixing that and fixing the louvers, and hopefully I can figure out some way of, maybe I'll get some more of those panels and just glue to the back sides here to kind of flatten it out. And the good thing is that these aren't heavy. You know, this only weighs maybe a couple ounces. So, and you clean it with some cleaner, and then I got some 2-part SMC epoxy repair that I can use on it, and it'll glue these to this backside of this hood no problem, because the backside of this hood, it just looks like raw fiberglass, so it'll stick to that raw fiberglass really, really well. And then all I'll have to do is just kind of rough this part, you know, the flat shiny part of this up, so that the epoxy has something to grab to. And I might be able to do it just in the center here, but I'd rather do it like one on each side maybe, and just cut a strip off in the center there maybe. I'm not sure. I'll find out more once I get the top of the hood cut off. I think that's the route I'm going, is I'm just going to cut the top of the hood off. It'll be easier to put back on too, because I can just use some sheet metal screws and some strips of sheet metal to screw into here and into the side there, and it'll pull it up and it'll hold it while I re-epoxy it back in there. Fun. Alright, so I'm going to try and record this cutting of the top of the hood off. No guarantees here. It's spun glass. This is spun glass fibers, and you don't want to be breathing this stuff in. It's really, really bad for you. So wear your dust mask. foam was an attempt to push that out, which did not work well. And now, this is my interpretation of a powdered donut. Yeah, see, it's going to be easier to get to the back side of this. I might not be able to see it 100%, but I'll be able to grind and cut that stuff and smooth it out a little bit better. I can even open up for the heat extraction if I so choose. Yeah, look at that. It's got... Okay, that's probably for me. And this stuff isn't even attached. It's just sitting in there. As you can see, the dust getting into the cracks, like that's all damage to the panel. That's, I mean, it's hardened, but not very well. Like that's just gonna come right off. Yeah, this foam was my attempt at pushing that center part out without doing this, cutting it all up. That didn't work. Yeah, my plan is to glue this to here. I might be able to clamp it somehow. As you can see, this isn't even sprayed on, it's just hand laid. Not very well. I mean, they seem to have put enough hardener in it, but no wonder this part here has an issue, because that's right where they laid an extra bit of fiberglass, but they didn't even lay it flat. Well, as you can see, I have totally cut this foot apart. I've adjusted or trimmed up. I trimmed up the snorkels, the front snorkels. I trimmed them up so that the cuts were actually straight, or straight-ish, a lot better than they were. I'll finish trimming them up and getting them looking right, and then fixing all the cuts that I made into it with some new fiberglass. I also cut out my ram air port, I guess you call it. I don't know, duct, and repositioned it. I was initially going to just trim the plastic shroud that goes around the air filter, and changed my mind because I already had most of the hood apart. So I spent most of my day yesterday getting this thing set in there right, and then fiberglassed it back in there. I ran into an issue with the hood here. I ran into an issue with the underside. I was using some of that two-part SMC repair epoxy. And the problem I ran into was it's so hot here right now that literally as soon as I get it mixed, it starts curing immediately. So I have one good section that's set up good for me and was nice and smooth, and then the rest of it was just a total disaster. So I'm gonna have to grind all of that smooth, and then I'm gonna sandwich it with some new fiberglass mat. I think what I'm gonna do for this big hole that I have now is I'm going to make up some fiberglass panels that I can fill that hole with off the car. Just use some fiberglass mat and some resin and lay it down on the floor with a piece of aluminum foil, and then I can let them pieces cure, and then I'll have some flat stock that I can make the rest of the enclosure with. And then the rest of it, what I'll do is I'll just try and pack with new fiberglass mat. Once I take the hood off and flip it upside down, I can lay it on the inside really nice. The fiberglass mat and resin worked pretty good. It did start drying on me near the end, but I managed to get 3 layers of fiberglass mat and resin all in one shot. So I mean, this is not going to go anywhere. It's nice and strong. Again, like I said, I think that's what I'm going to do this morning. I made some fiberglass mat pieces yesterday. Here's what I made yesterday, and I just laid it out on aluminum foil because it gives you kind of a nice-ish flat piece, and then I can trim these up, and I'm going to use these to give the center section of the hood I cut out. What I'll do is I'll trim these pieces up, and then I can glue them with that SMC repair like that. Trim them up so that they're flush. Trim them up so they're more or less flush with just a little bit of a lip, and that'll give that center section of the hood something to kind of set on, so that when I am in the mode to put put that center piece back in, I can use it to set the hood on, and it'll stay elevated and level so that I can fiberglass it back in. I basically have to do a coat of matte and fiberglass over the whole top of the hood because there's just so many cracks and splits, and from them doing, I don't know if it's from them removing it from the molds. I'm guessing that's what this is. They brushed everything in, so this is all it's a hand laid hood. It's not a sprayed hood. At least that's what it looks like to me. It doesn't look like a sprayed hood. It looks like it's laid in all by hand. And I think what they did when they removed it from the mold is they just used like screwdrivers or something and just destroyed the outside of the hood. It had a lot of cracks like that, and they just had body filler over top of it. There's tons of voids where they didn't get the voids out, like that's a huge void. The whole front edge of the hood was all body filler, and I've sanded that all down. It's all, like, I've got the top of the hood all prepped with 80 grit, except for this back section there, but I've got it all prepped with 80 grit, and like the primer they used in a flat black, like underneath the hood, it's not even sticking in spots. They sprayed it right over top of shiny parts of the fiberglass. I'm guessing this is a gel coat that they brushed into the mold first. That's what all the brush marks are. And then you can really see it on the center section of the hood. What I did, and I'm not 100% done because I want to tune up the sides here, but I resized all the louvers so they're all the same size, more or less roughly. And I used a file, and then if there was any real discrepancies, like one was really thick, I used my tape as a guide and used a die grinder, a cutoff wheel, and just trimmed it up close to the tape, and then finished it off with 80 grit on a sanding block to make it flat. And then what I need to do is I need to finish beveling these, which shouldn't take too long, but they just need to be fixed a little bit. They're not quite right. They're not quite uniform. They're close, but they're not quite what I like. So I still haven't glued that plastic to the backside here. I'm thinking I'm probably going to do that today too, because that glue dries so fast in this weather that I shouldn't have to have it clamped for more than half an hour at best, because that stuff it kicked so fast. I was so rushed trying to get it to set down there that I don't think I'm going to use it again unless it's some small piece that I need to hold in place. Like initially when I did it, when I used it over here, it was to initially hold the snorkel outlet, I guess you call it, the duct. It was initially to hold that duct in place so that I could let the hood down and fiberglass the back side of it. Like that was one batch, and as I was trying to spread it over here for what was left over, it started kicking. And I mean, once this stuff kicks, it kicks now. It hardens like right now. And so I had to quickly mix up another batch because I'm not using the mix tube. I was just mixing it on a piece of cardboard, and get a new batch on there before the first batch completely cured, so it would bite into each other. But it was sticking to my, like the fiberglass mat was sticking to my glove. It was a nightmare. I was not happy. So I'm gonna have to sand that all smooth. I'll probably have to grind it smooth and give the fiberglass mat something to bite to. But the rest of it I've all got done with my grinder and grinding wheels and stuff. I'm gonna have to grind that up a little bit, and it was a lot of work. I spent most of my day doing that, trying to get that set right and trimming pieces off of it, and then repositioning it, and I think I got it setting pretty good. It's not perfect, but at least it'll match up, and it's underneath the hood, so I can get away with a little bit underneath the hood, but I'm gonna go ahead and smooth it out as much as I can and make the transitions from the being two pieces to being one piece. I'm going to smooth out all the transitions and everything so that it looks really nice. But you guys will be able to watch along while I do that. It was just it wasn't a fun day yesterday. I am not a fan of fiberglass work. I had my little patch panel made and cured, and then I put it on there, marked it off, and trimmed it so it mostly fit. It doesn't have to be perfect, not on the inside. Nobody's ever going to see it again. As long as it's structural and I got it fiberglassed in there. It's still, fiberglass is still a little tacky yet, but it's getting there. But I got that all fixed on there. And that's what it looks like on the inside. So now I'm getting ready to, and I will film this part, putting some fiberglass around the perimeter. I'm still undecided how I'm going to fix this, if I'm just going to wet down some fiberglass mat and try to get it to kind of conform. I have a feeling that that's not going to work very well. I'll come back to that part, I think. I'd be able to bridge it around here pretty good, I think, without it drooping too much. But when it comes to this area here, I think I'm going to run into an issue. I wish I could do it from the back side, but I just don't have enough of that outside part cut off, and I'm not cutting any more of it off. That just seems like it's defeating the purpose. So I'm going to go ahead and fiberglass this part in, get some mat made up, and get my mix mixed up, and then I'll get the camera going. I'm going to try some of this fiberglass tape, just so I have a backing for the fiberglass mat. I don't know how well it'll stick, but I'm just looking for something to back it with. Oh, it'll give the fiberglass mat something to kind of lean against, and hopefully it won't droop too much. I think that's good. Yeah, and it might not stick right. I don't know. I just want something to kind of give some structure to it. I got some finer mat here I'm going to try using. I've had this stuff forever, but the great thing about fiberglass is that it never goes bad. At least the mat doesn't. Kind of like to put down a base, and it's messy, so you're gonna drip all over the place, so you're always better to have some plastic or something down so you're not dripping all over your stuff. I'm sure you can hear it dripping and dropping and whatnot. And I don't care what size it is, what shape it is, I just want something there. It's all gonna get ground and shaped and all that stuff anyhow. I kind of dab. Out so much brush. Probably super boring to watch, and I always find it hard to talk while I'm doing stuff sometimes. And I'm trying to soak that mat as much as I can. That's not going to work. Okay, let's cut some more. Definitely don't think it's going to be perfect here. Nothing fancy. These are definitely not custom cuts here either. Always got to readjust your stuff sometimes. Make your pieces smaller if you can, or if you need to. And it always becomes a problem once your gloves get stuck with this stuff because it wants to stick to your gloves as much as the panel. I always try and give enough of it in layers to so I can grind it smooth and not worry about grinding through it, because then you're right back doing the same thing all over again. be amazed how thick this stuff gets just by adding a few layers to it. Depending on how high the temperature is and humidity is in your area will depend on how much time you have to work with this stuff. The hotter and more humid it is, the faster this stuff dries. You can adjust it a little bit with how much hardener you put in, but you're still on a ticking clock. I think I'm going to add another batch to that span I tried to bridge. I wanted to get a few layers right here. Do that span again. Bigger piece. Trying to get that cloth as saturated as I can, but the light isn't real good down here underneath. So I'm kind of doing a little bit by feel here. Everything is sticking to my gloves now too, that's always an added bonus. Definitely going to have some finish work ahead in here. Trying to get it to conform as much as I can, but and I probably would have been better off by just taking the hood off, but what fun would that be? I'm just thankful for sheet plastic right now, because this is a mess and a half. As long as I still got good resin left, I'm going to keep adding to it here. I can't tell if you can see what I'm doing or not, but I can't stop, and I definitely don't want to touch my camera right now. I hope you can see what I'm doing. And I got the air running in the garage right now. It is still hot. I'm still sweaty in here. Of course, it doesn't help any that it's like 98 degrees outside today. I'm very thankful that I have air conditioning, because doing this in 98 degree heat would not be fun. looks like it's starting to kick off a little bit now. My hardener, that is. Or my fiberglass resin, it's starting to get a little thick, which is fine as long as I can get just a little bit more here. Got a little bit of time left here. I have to do that very far underside part, I think, right here, and I can flip the hood over. Okay, I'll make that a little bit easier to do. Okay, I think that's about all I got out of it. Let me see, maybe I'll try and just do that spot anyways. Yeah, why not? I got this. My resin's still fairly okay. Getting a little chunky. As long as it soaks in, that's all I care about. Kind of trying to make sure it's all fairly well positioned. I got some droop, but I think that's good. Clean my brush off. that's what it looks like while it's curing. It's nothing special, but it'll give me a good base for finishing it off. At least I'll have some kind of structure there. So I did a thing. I tried to get these panels to be flat, and the best I could get was like I tried cutting some slats in it and pushing down and using some SMC adhesive on them to get them to lay flatter, and that just, it really didn't do that much. I'd have had to I still would have had them like be wavy at best and look like total garbage. So I went ahead and cut them out. I had some, and both sides were about the same too. They were, this side, the driver's side was a little bit better and only had a hump on this part here, but it was still, even after cutting some slats in it and pushing it down and gluing it up, it still wasn't great. I'd have had to do a ton of finish work in it. Not any more finish work than what I'm going to get ready to do now. I just spray foamed it. So I cut those panels out, I spray foamed it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shape the foam insulation down to be flat, and then I'm going to lay fresh fiberglass down and then finish it off that way. And then I've also taken and glued my tabs in. Those are still curing. I got some really slow curing SMC repair that I got off of Amazon that is currently being used there. It should be pretty close. It's pretty close. It's still kind of soft. So I've just got them all around, and the only parts that I haven't done is the front part. I cut out those grills that were terribly put in there, and I used that gutter guard, which is just an aluminum expanded metal mesh, and I got both those pieces off of one single bit of gutter guard, and then I've got this one pretty much set in as far as shape wise. It'll probably change slightly when I finish doing this part here, because I'm gonna have to, after I lay that, after I shape the foam and lay the fiberglass down, I'm gonna have to dig some of that foam out around the lip so that I have some place to attach that to. But that shouldn't be terrible. I just know that this way I can have some really nice flat, I'm gonna do like a slight round to them, so it's gonna be slightly rounded like that, but it's gonna be flat across here and match the upper part of my snorkel. So that's what I'm getting ready to do. I'm just waiting on this stuff to kind of cure up more. I ended up using almost a whole can, other than a partial amount that I used around my door that I just wanted to use up the rest of the can. But so this is still soft, so it's gonna have to sit for a bit, and then once I get these shaped, laying fresh fiberglass should be pretty straightforward. I can lay fiberglass right over top of that stuff, and then it'll be the base that'll help support it. But that's where I've been at. I've already got the underside here all prepped all around the perimeter, and then for gluing this back down, what I'll do is I'll use the tabs, put a small dollop of SMC epoxy on there, I think, just to kind of hold it in place, and then I can fiberglass it back in solid. And then I was initially going to have big sheets of this hobby plastic laying across here to kind of help with that dog dish area. But I found that even though this is kind of thick plastic, it didn't hold it at all. So I decided to cut it into like 1-inch strips, and then glue it in there with that SMC epoxy. And then I've already shaped these two. These two had to be shaved down to fit the void. I may have to adjust these outside ones a little bit, but that will give me a little bit more rigidity. It'll make it stronger. I mean, I feel like I'm doing lipstick on a pig for some of this stuff, but it's just what you got to do. I'm not quite finished shaping my louvers yet. I'm going to finish doing the edge or the ends of the louvers so that they'll be a little bit more uniform. I think I'm just going to use my little mini DA and kind of shape them with that and some 80 grit. It'll give me a little bit more control, and I won't have to worry about taking too much material away. It's either that or I have to do it with like a file, and I don't want to do a file for all of those louvers. That's too tedious, and I have air power, so I'm just gonna eye them and make them a little bit more uniform and just be done with it. But this part here is pretty much ready to go on, other than shaping those. I'm gonna have some finish work to do there, but sanding that foam and stuff, that's not too bad. And I've had these sitting on here for quite some time now, so it's been a productive day. I think this one might be a problem. I cut a little bit on the transition here and not so much on the flat like I should have, but luckily this stuff's flexible enough that it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And I got enough lip on the back there that they should be glued on there good enough. I still got to finish sanding that back panel there, and I think what I'm going to do to get this sized, I trimmed both sides of the hood, but then of course, you know, I took too much off. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit both the fenders, fit the hood as best I can to where I think it needs to be, and then I'll drape some plastic along the edge of both the fenders, kind of like this, and then I'll fill that. I'll put something behind it to kind of brace underneath the hood. Maybe I'll use some cardboard or something like that, strips of cardboard, tape it up underneath or something. I'll figure something out and get that to, I'll overdo it and then I can just trim it down, you know, and give myself the proper gap so that it actually looks like it belongs on the car again. Lots of fun. I have my, like I said, I have my snorkel, my ram air exhaust, I guess you'd call it, all set now. I still got to do some finish work on the inside, but that puppy's strong. It isn't going anywhere now. Ooh, it's soft. Yeah, so that should give me a good basis for laying some fresh fiberglass down and making this thing look like it should have looked when it came out. Another thing I noticed, and it's kind of hard to tell right now, but this part of this side of the hood, where the snorkel and where the intake is nice and kind of straight, has a nice shape to it. And then I came over to this side when I was fixing this side and fixing the, you know, cutting the slats and using the glue and all that stuff. I noticed that this side has a curve to it. So yeah, that's great. So I kind of used a file. I used a half round file or rasp, whatever you want to call it, and shaped it and straightened it out. And what it's done is it's made it go skinny a little bit. And then I'll have to build this section up a little bit. I'll use some Fiberglass or something like that or just some body filler to get that to build up better. Lots of fun. Okay, so I learned a valuable lesson that I was not aware of, and that is household spray foam insulation, the expanding foam in a can, and fiberglass resin is not compatible at all. When I had the foam here, I cut it down, trimmed it out, leveled it off so it gave me a pretty good backing to lay some fiberglass mat on, and this was the result. It just, like, this is where it was sitting, and the fiberglass resin just ate right into that foam, and it just looked terrible. I mean, I might as well have left the humped versions of these parts in place because they looked better. I mean, it's bad. So I cut them out, and both sides, by the way. I mean, it just went really bad. So I cut them out, and then I decided to do the thing where I lay out some aluminum foil, and then I mixed up some resin and cut some strips of fiberglass mat. And then I've ended up using the finer grain, like, I guess that's a boat mat, fiberglass boat repair mat. I'm not as big of a fan of that finer mesh as I am the scattered strand type mat. I think that the scattered strand type mat is stronger in single. Like this here is single, and it's just one strip that I have in fiberglass, and it's flexible, but it definitely has some strength to it. When I did that initially with this piece here, it was just super floppy. There was no backing to it. So what I did was I had to sand the top layer with 80 grit to scuff it all up so I could do another layer of fiberglass. And then I did another layer of that fine mesh fiberglass, and then I did some fiberglass mat or fiberglass tape at the very end, and that made it pretty strong. Like, this is about twice as strong now as this here is. I mean, this has got some strength to it, some rigidity, but I can still cut this with just a pair of scissors. This I cannot cut with a pair of scissors. This is so much thicker and stronger. So I've got the basic blanks marked out on here, and I'm going to use a cut-off wheel or die grinder and just kind of trim around and make them closer to the size they need to be. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is, this actually goes on this side, but what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to cut bigger around here, because I can't add, it's harder to add to it than take away. So I'm going to cut bigger than I need and try and make that cut that's this part here as straight as I can. And then I may either set it up so it's kind of underneath but matches up somehow to the end here. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. I gotta figure out a way to make it so that it's got support when I glue it in with the 2-part epoxy, and then I can build on that to make it nice and flat and rigid. It's got a little bit of a curve to it. Like I just laid it on the cement floor, but with the aluminum foil, but even the aluminum foil doesn't come out straight. Like, even trying to lay it as flat as possible, I could have probably laid that out and then laid another piece of aluminum foil over top of it and then put something heavy on it, and it would have flattened it out more. But you know, I got to grind it and fill it a little bit anyways, and the top seemed to be a little better than the bottom. But so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to trim these out. I may either trim it so it fits perfect or pretty damn close. I think that's, or I'm just going to do it so it kind of sits on top. I might actually do that, sits on top. That might actually be okay. It'll be minor enough that you won't notice it. But that's where I am.